All I was able to do since the last update on the Panzer III were both fenders, the engine deck and the transmission or brake cover. That doesn't seem to be much, but I'm glad I got that far at all. The left fender almost killed my mojo, and it wasn't the kit that did that. It is probably the best kit I ever had on my bench, but on the other hand, the instructions are the worst I ever saw, and I'll show you what I mean. If you're going to use everything, including all the more or less important PE, you'll have to deal with 47 parts in step 7. 47 parts, of which 10 are used for the jack. Maybe I'm very German here, but this step in the instructions is too packed with parts. It looks like a living room on the morning after a party with loads of guests and alcohol. Very untidy, empty plates and broken glass everywhere. And looking at these instructions causes the same bad headaches you'd have after the aforementioned party. Here's what the left fender looks like after I finished building it. The spare road wheels aren't glued in place cause I'll paint them separately. It took me 4 days to build this. The reason was that everything was swimming before my eyes when I looked at the instructions for too long. The arrows showing where to glue the parts weren't as clear as I would have wanted them to be. It would have been much easier to follow the instructions if there hadn't been so many parts at once. A little battle damage here, a missing mud flap. And here's the sub-assembly that almost made me use a large and heavy hammer to fix it, the jack. Let's talk about the jack and how the instructions made building it a bad experience. As you can see here, the first problem was the wrong part number. The instructions asked for part G48, which was in fact G54. A minor problem, but an absolutely unnecessary one. Next, the arrow doesn't show the attachment point for part number G53. This arrow should point at the small half circle next to the larger circle a little higher on the right hand side. Another minor problem, but it is the second problem on the second part of the jack. Then we have the clamps for the jack. 4 parts altogether and 4 more problems. With almost 40 years of experience in armored modeling, I wasn't able to make out where exactly these parts had to be attached. I decided to glue the lower parts of the clamps onto the fender first. The instructions show that you've got to be careful when you're building the jack. At least they are right here. Special care and attention is needed when you decide to build the jack in the order I did it. The way the jack's assembly is shown in the instructions is not the way it has to be glued onto the fender. You need to turn it by 180 degrees. The handle is then on the inside. This is easily overlooked due to the many things that are going on in this step. I had to glue the left clamp to the right and the right clamp to the left hand side, both turned around. Of course I did it the wrong way and I had to remove the parts and put them on in the correct position. Meanwhile, the plastic cement dissolved the locator pins. In the end, I was able to do it the right way. This didn't have to happen. Part of the problem was my doing, but the other part were the too busy instructions. Here we have the front part of the left fender. I decided to use the optional clear part for the position light. I masked the lens as good as possible and I'll paint the rest of this part silver before priming. I tried to split step 7 of the instructions into more steps to make clear how I would like the instructions to be. Dragon would only have to use a little more paper to do this. This isn't glossy paper, nor is it color print. It wouldn't even be much more expensive. I'll leave you alone with my idea now, so you can judge for yourself if this is better than what Dragon provides us with. One of my favorites in the instructions. I wanted to use part 25 and keep the PE part for my Stück. C25 is printed in blue and that means it's on a second sprue C, right? No, wrong. It's one of the parts on sprue C that is marked as not for use. Now, isn't that nice? You can use an optional part that shouldn't be used at all. Anyone still thinking that Dragon instructions are any good? Another minor problem. There is no hole for the position light on the fender. That flange is missing completely. At that moment I was already so angry that I couldn't be bothered with doing any research on the light. I just drilled a hole in an eyeballed position. Really, Dragon, for the vast sums of money you charge for your kits, you should at least be able to provide us modelers with proper instructions. The quality of the kit and the quality of the instructions are two completely different things. The first is very nice so far, since I didn't come across any fit issues and the detail is superb. The latter would be good for use in another place, if they were soft enough. While I was in the state of mind of giving up on the kit the day before, I woke up with another point of view. I wouldn't allow the kit, or the instructions I should say, to defeat me. I never gave up and I always managed to build each kit I had on my bench. So I built the right fender, the engine deck and the transmission or brake cover in one day. And that's what can happen if I'm really angry. The other possibility would have been to stow the kit away for the future, but that's exactly what I didn't want to do. The lesson I learned here is to copy the instructions and split busy steps into several sub-steps with less parts. That makes life much easier and then it's even big fun to build a Dragon kit. It would be much better if Dragon would do that for us, but after all I heard about that company, they are the last to listen to complaints or suggestions. If that's true, there's only one answer we can give.